Our story begins in this fantasy world filled with countless magical creatures, where humans, beasts, peculiar fish, fairies, and spirits coexist, and the dragon rises as the most feared and powerful species. We meet Letty, this red dragon who's honestly nothing like what you'd expect from a dragon. It turns out his parents literally disowned him after he failed to guard their eggs, and now he's stuck trying to find his own place to live. The problem is, Letty is basically the opposite of scary. He's meek, cowardly, and his stats are just terrible. He realizes pretty quickly that being a defenseless young dragon makes him an easy target for anyone who sees him as just another beast to hunt down or even eat. Meanwhile, we see this slime couple who's also looking for a place to live so they can breed. They approach this elf named Diaria to help them buy a house. It turns out Diaria is actually a demon lord who works as an architect and real estate agent, which is pretty wild when you think about it. He shows them this cave deep in the woods where they can avoid humans, and the slime couple thinks it looks perfect. They mention that their old home got featured in some magazine, which led to humans constantly raiding their place and forcing them to move. Diaria tells them the cave has a camouflage spell that lasts for a year, and if they buy now, they get it for free. After they close the deal, Diaria leaves to deal with other business. Back to Letty, things go from bad to worse. He gets captured by dwarves while he's searching for the dwarven city. These greedy little guys think Letty came to steal their gold, so they lock him up in a cage and start celebrating about catching a dragon. Letty is literally crying and tries to negotiate with them, explaining that he only wanted help building a house because dwarves are famous for their construction skills. The dwarf leader agrees to help, but there's a catch. He wants every part of Letty's body, from his horns to his tail. He starts listing all the things he could sell for ridiculous prices, and Letty realizes he's in serious trouble. Thinking quickly, Letty decides to use the dwarves' greed against them. He tricks them into believing someone is stealing their gold, and in all the confusion, he manages to escape by running into the forest. But his luck doesn't get any better. He runs straight into the same hunter who stole the egg earlier. Just when it seems like he's trapped, the dwarves catch up and start fighting with the hunter, giving Letty another chance to escape. After hours of running and stumbling around, Letty finally collapses and starts crying alone in the forest. But then two harpies find him and actually feel sorry for his miserable state. They invite him to stay with them since their nest has been pretty empty after their chicks left. Letty accepts, hoping he's finally found a place to stay. There's just one small problem. Letty can't fly. The harpies try to teach him, encouraging him as he jumps from the nest. For about 3 glorious seconds, Letty feels the wind beneath his wings before crashing to the ground because he forgot the most important rule: you have to flap your wings. The harpies burst out laughing while Letty lies there in embarrassment. With his spirits completely crushed but a new idea in mind, Letty decides to head toward the valley where there's this giant oak tree that's home to goblins. He hopes they might help him out. Unfortunately, his bad luck continues. When he arrives, the goblins see him more as a tasty dragon steak than a potential ally. But when he mentions the harpies, the goblins change their attitude and free him from the trap he'd fallen into. They encourage him to move on and stop being such a coward. After all, he's supposed to be a dragon. Letty keeps wandering around, meeting all sorts of weird characters. At one point, he meets this Sawajan who offers him a place to live underwater in his home. But Letty quickly realizes he can't breathe or swim underwater, so he has to decline the offer. Despite all these strange encounters, Letty keeps going, always searching for that place he can call home. Finally, Letty gets a valuable lead. He hears about heading east to the forest near the great Yggdrasil tree, where there's this master architect elf named Diaria who might be able to help him. After getting directions from some friendly gnomes, Letty finally arrives at Diaria's home. But before he can even relax, a group of heroes spots him and, as expected, they want to kill him. To them, a dragon is a threat no matter how pathetic it might be. Letty can't believe this is happening and thinks it must be some kind of joke. He even asks where the hidden cameras are, but the heroes aren't messing around and quickly corner him. Just when it looks like Letty is about to get torn apart, this mysterious figure appears. With a powerful book in hand, Diaria casts a spell that instantly incinerates the heroes. Letty is so impressed by Diaria's power that he faints on the spot. When he wakes up, Letty starts crying like a baby with this childish voice, begging Diaria that he just wants to go back home. After his whole nightmare adventure trying to find a home, Letty wakes up and finds himself face to face with this gray-haired elf. Without wasting any time, Letty starts talking about what he's heard, that there's this great architect in the area who can build anything. The elf, looking pretty serene, reveals that he's actually the legendary Diaria, the architect Letty had been searching for this whole time. Letty freezes in disbelief and starts stammering nervously, but he recovers enough to basically beg Diaria on his knees to help him find a home. Diaria, who's been in the real estate business for centuries, presents him with three options: build his own house, buy one that's already made, or rent a property from an owner. Letty gets all starry-eyed and starts daydreaming, imagining Diaria as some kind of real estate god with supernatural powers to solve all his problems. But this fantasy quickly crashes when Diaria hands him his business card. Letty looks at it and discovers that besides being an architect, Diaria holds the weird title of Demon Lord of Real Estate. Letty's jaw just drops. Diaria confirms it's just one of his many jobs and asks Letty which option he prefers for his new home. Letty, still disturbed by the whole Demon Lord thing, tries to stay focused and says he'd like a small, cozy cabin. Diaria points out that while a cabin sounds nice, it probably won't work for someone of Letty's size. He also warns that such a vulnerable house would leave him exposed to attacks from dragon hunters and heroes who are always looking to get rich by capturing a dragon. This warning makes Letty shake like a leaf, his fear obvious to everyone. Determined to protect his new client, Diaria decides to take Letty to a safer option, a dungeon. As they approach this imposing structure, Diaria explains that the property has been used by many powerful beings and is equipped with anti-hero traps, perfect for keeping a vulnerable tenant like Letty safe. The idea of traps doesn't exactly reassure Letty, but he doesn't have much time to protest before Diaria guides him inside for a tour. The interior of the dungeon is pretty impressive, with huge stone columns, dark hallways, and of course, hidden traps around every corner. Despite Diaria's warnings to watch where he steps, Letty, being the clumsiest and most distracted dragon of all time, falls into every single trap possible. Diaria just watches calmly like he's already used to this kind of thing. He even mentions with a smile that the traps are so dangerous he's had to revive more than one client, something he can do effortlessly. Letty ends up physically and emotionally exhausted after falling into every trap in the dungeon and finds himself in some kind of underground healing center. While he's recovering, Letty gets into this pool, only to remember that while injuries can be healed, stupidity apparently cannot, as he nearly ends up drowning in the process. Diaria, patient as always, helps him out and tells him it's time to return to the upper level. Letty's return is, to put it mildly, slow and absolutely painful to watch. As a dragon who can't fly, he has to climb the walls, which leaves him completely exhausted by the time he reaches the top. On the way up, a group of heroes tries to ambush him, but Diaria once again scares them off with his demonic power, all while Letty remains completely oblivious to what's happening around him. When he finally arrives at the top, Diaria congratulates him on his effort, which actually brings Letty to tears. It turns out no one, not even his own father, had ever praised him before. But despite this emotional moment, Letty makes it clear that he's not interested in buying a house filled with anti-hero traps. So the search for a home continues. Still sore from his dungeon experience, Letty asks if the next property has traps. Diaria, with this enigmatic smile, assures him it does not. This time, Diaria takes him to a house he claims is so well protected that heroes would never dare approach it. Letty walks alongside him, intrigued but cautious, until they reach what's called the Mansion of the Dead. When Letty sees the sign on the door, his eyes go wide and he asks if the house is haunted. Diaria, without missing a beat, responds that it is. Letty tries to turn and run, but Diaria grabs him by the tail and drags him back. As they enter the mansion, Letty can't help but shiver at this spectral cold that runs through him. Diaria, in his usual calm manner, tells him that all attempts at exorcisms in the house have failed, but that's nothing to worry about. He then hands Letty a vacuum cleaner and tells him that if he sees a ghost, he can use it to capture them. Before Letty can even protest, Diaria wishes him sweet dreams and just leaves him there. Alone and scared under a blanket, Letty realizes something is watching him in his room. Looking up, he finds himself face to face with this ghostly child. Terrified, he bolts from the room and ends up wandering through a dark hallway until a ghost hands him a lantern, which oddly enough calms him a little, probably because he doesn't realize who gave it to him. But his nerves return when he comes across a blood-covered room and finds himself cornered by an army of ghosts waiting for him outside the hallway. Desperate, he opens a door and faints at the sight of this particularly terrifying specter. When Letty comes to, he wakes up surrounded by skeletons, and Lord Samuel, the king of the ghosts, tells Diaria he hadn't expected a dragon to be so cowardly. It turns out the ghosts were only trying to greet him and welcome him to their home. Both the ghosts and Diaria try to convince Letty to buy the property since he would be protected from anyone trying to attack him. But he still has his doubts, most likely still recovering from his fear. We learn from Samuel that Diaria used to wander around with a dragon who was his great friend. Diaria responds that since he had a dragon as a companion in the past, maybe that's why he has a soft spot for Letty. A little while later, Letty tells Diaria that he's been thinking and needs a home where he can relax more easily. He won't be able to do that surrounded by the dead. Understanding this, Diaria promises to help Letty find a home to his liking. Everyone says their goodbyes, and Letty realizes that in the end, the dead weren't as bad as they seemed, and he just needs to be more careful of the living, who are far more dangerous. At the dawn of a new day, as they resume their journey, Diaria asks Letty if he would mind making a quick stop along the way. Like an obedient dog, Letty nods, but he's full of curiosity about where they're headed this time. To his surprise, Diaria reveals that their next stop is the lair of a witch. When Letty hears those words, he shudders, his face transforming into pure panic and terror. With this trembling voice, like a frightened child, he asks if it's really necessary to go through such a terrifying place. Diaria, with his usual calmness, explains that they need to return this special bed that was lent for Letty's size. Letty, still confused, wonders how Diaria transports something so large. With a sly smile, Diaria pulls out this small magical bag that, despite its size, can hold anything an adventurer might need, no matter how large. It's in these little details that you realize Diaria is always one step ahead of everything. When they finally reach their destination, this dusty and dark cave, Letty can't help but feel a knot in his stomach. Upon entering, they encounter three peculiar and frankly unattractive-looking old women. Diaria introduces them as the Grey Sisters, known for being expert artisans, though their appearance doesn't exactly inspire confidence in Letty. To his surprise, the sisters greet them kindly and explain that although they usually reject visitors, they'll make an exception, clearly captivated by Diaria's charm. The sisters lead them through a secret passage that opens into this majestic room filled with all sorts of items to satisfy the most extravagant tastes. Letty is completely amazed by the impressive variety of objects, from furniture to magical artifacts. The sisters proudly declare that anything one desires can be found there. As they explore, Diaria shows Letty this special door that can transport people to different places depending on which doorknob is used. Fascinated by the idea of traveling without walking, Letty can't resist the temptation to try it. He places a knob on the door and finds himself opening a portal that takes him to the city of the dwarves. But the situation takes an awkward turn when he discovers that the dwarves are furious and arguing about assembling a capture team to catch the red dragon. Letty realizes they're talking about him, panics, and quickly shuts the door, vowing never to make a similar mistake again. To calm him down, the sisters show him another door, the ladies' door, adorned with the image of a beautiful woman. Delighted, Letty can't help but feel excited like a small child, but his excitement quickly turns to embarrassment when the figure on the door begins to recite a poem dedicated to him. Diaria explains that if Letty uses the magic word, the lady can teleport him anywhere in the world. However, if he takes too long, she'll recite an embarrassing poem dedicated to him. Unfortunately for Letty, he freezes with nerves, and before he can react, the lady begins to declaim this embarrassing poem about her admiration for him. Ashamed and in tears, Letty cries out of pure embarrassment, while Diaria, feeling sorry for him, encourages him to distract himself by looking at other things in the room. As he explores the place, Letty discovers this huge fireplace that immediately captures his attention. He begins daydreaming about how it would look in his future home, imagining cozy moments by the fire. But his illusions are shattered when Diaria reveals that the fireplace weighs nearly 100 tons and no ordinary house could support such a structure. Once again, Letty feels defeated, adding another failure to his quest for the perfect home. In an attempt to cheer him up, Diaria suggests they build a new house from scratch that can withstand such weight. This idea excites Letty, but his excitement is soon dampened when he remembers that he doesn't have enough money to afford the construction. When Diaria asks how much money he has, Letty pulls out his wallet and, with a smile, hands him his only treasure, one of his baby teeth. So Letty gets all excited about this tooth fairy thing. He's explaining to Diaria how if you put a tooth under your pillow, a fairy will come and leave you money. It's pretty cute actually, but Diaria just looks at him like he's nuts and tells him straight up that it's just a myth. Though he does mention that if it was an adult dragon tooth, Letty might actually get some decent cash for it. But he tells Letty not to worry about money stuff right now. So Diaria pulls out this blueprint for Letty's new house, and once Letty gives it the thumbs up, things get crazy fast. We see Diaria just summon a whole crew of gnomes to handle construction, and these green ogres to do all the heavy lifting. Letty thinks he can help out, but he quickly realizes he's just making everything worse. The gnomes get so annoyed they literally push him aside and start beating him up. It's pretty funny actually. Diaria tries to calm him down, telling him that Rome wasn't built in a day and he needs to take it slow. After a whole week of work, the house is finally done. Letty's super grateful and thanks everyone who helped build it. But before he can even enjoy his new place, Diaria warns him that heroes are definitely going to show up looking to cause trouble. As a solution, Diaria summons this trio of monsters to be Letty's bodyguards. He explains that these guys will protect him by fighting off heroes, and the rest of their payment will go toward covering construction costs. Then Diaria just wishes him luck and takes off, leaving Letty with his new house. It doesn't take long for trouble to find him. These heroes show up and start touring the place while Letty's sleeping. They run into the trio of bodyguards, and things get messy fast. The noise wakes Letty up, and when he goes to check what's happening, the bodyguards tell him they already dealt with the troublemakers. There's one hero left standing, and when he lifts his head and sees Letty, he recognizes him as the dragon who destroyed his buddies. The guy freaks out and runs away in the middle of the night, leaving all his equipment behind. Word starts spreading about Letty being this Lord of the Fire Dragon, and other creatures start coming to him for help. He gets completely overwhelmed by all the pressure and this new title he never wanted. So Letty decides the best thing to do is just abandon his new home completely. On his way out, he runs into Diaria, who listens to his problems and understands why he's so frustrated. Diaria promises to help him find the perfect home where he can live in peace without all this unwanted attention. Now we find our guys in these frozen plains called Alba. Letty and Diaria are still on this epic quest to find the perfect home for our dragon friend. What should be a simple house hunting trip keeps turning into these ridiculously funny situations. This time they're in this snow-covered landscape, and Letty looks pretty skeptical about the whole thing. I mean, the North Pole might work for polar bears, but for dragons? Not so much. Letty knows he's no real estate expert, so he's letting Diaria handle the location picking. And Diaria's always thinking ahead. He brought special cold weather gear for both of them. The clothes aren't exactly fashionable, but hey, staying warm beats looking good. Letty's standing there confused about why they're in the middle of this snowy field, so he asks Diaria about it. The demon lord, calm as always, reminds Letty that he wanted to live a peaceful, isolated life away from hunters. And what better place than the North Pole where your only neighbors are penguins and polar bears? Diaria also points out that land in this area is super cheap, which would definitely help Letty's wallet situation. But Letty starts having second thoughts because even though the price is tempting, these extreme conditions aren't really what he had in mind. To give him a reality check, Diaria shows him this low-budget documentary about Yeti life and how they managed to survive in such harsh conditions. After watching it, Diaria tells Letty that if he really wants to live here, he's going to have to work hard for it. Letty gets confused and asks if he has to do everything alone. But Diaria reveals that building igloos doesn't require much effort or resources, so Letty can start the work himself with just a little help and guidance. With Diaria's assistance, Letty finally manages to build this modest igloo, though the whole process is filled with complaints and tantrums from our dragon, who still isn't convinced that North Pole living is for him. But Diaria has a new challenge. Letty has to live alone in that igloo for 3 whole days to learn how to survive in isolation. The warning, "try not to die," isn't exactly what Letty wanted to hear, and he starts panicking, thinking this is some kind of torture. And honestly, you can understand why he's worried since he previously lived in a house full of dangerous traps and another one that was haunted by ghosts. Before Letty can protest anymore, Diaria just teleports away without saying anything, leaving Letty completely alone. With the cold cutting through him and fear and desperation setting in, Letty tries to hunt something to eat. He spots some reindeer, and even though his dragon instincts tell him he could easily catch them, his clumsiness turns him from hunter into prey pretty quickly. After several failed hunting attempts, Letty decides maybe it's time to start a diet, though his growling stomach definitely disagrees with that plan. Things get worse when Letty gets completely lost in this vast white landscape, and panic starts taking over. Just when everything seems hopeless, Letty comes face to face with this huge white Yeti. He's terrified and tries to run, but the Yeti grabs him by the tail and stops him. Letty thinks he's about to become dinner, so he starts praying, but then he realizes the Yeti doesn't have any bad intentions at all. The Yeti actually invites him into his well-heated igloo, and inside Letty finds Diaria preparing dinner like nothing weird happened. But the situation gets even stranger when Letty notices that Diaria, the Yeti, and even some dwarves and heroes who appeared out of nowhere are all completely naked. Letty starts freaking out about how weird everything is, but before he can react, he opens his eyes and realizes it was all just a bizarre dream. He wakes up in the middle of the tundra and keeps searching for food. Soon he comes across this abandoned egg, and his appetite kicks in big time. His mind starts imagining all these delicious recipes. But then Letty remembers his unfortunate past when a thief stole his own egg because he didn't take proper care of it. He's determined not to repeat that mistake, so he promises not to eat this egg and continues looking for a home. But just as he turns around, the ice under his feet breaks and Letty ends up drifting on this piece of floating ice. Now our dragon has to take care of the egg while trying to keep his own instincts under control. As if that wasn't enough trouble, Letty finds himself face to face with this giant whale that swallows him whole. Inside the whale's stomach, Letty wakes up and meets this amphibious man. It's none other than Davy Jones, a living legend of the sea. Letty panics and wonders if Davy plans to eat him, but the guy reassures him and shows him his home inside the whale. It's this cozy room filled with marine treasures. Letty explores this weird house, surprised by all the utensils and food everywhere, and decides to stick around for a while. But of course, his comfort doesn't last long. One morning, Letty discovers Davy sharpening a knife, and it sends a shiver down his spine. He's thinking the worst, that Davy wants to eat him. So he makes up some excuse about needing to leave, saying someone important is waiting for him back home. But it turns out Davy was just preparing a warm lunch for both of them. Davy understands though, and he helps Letty escape by throwing this barrel of pepper into the whale's nostrils. The whale lets out this massive sneeze that shoots Letty right back out into the world. Back in the freezing cold, Letty lands on a chunk of ice where he encounters this adorable seal. He tries to hunt it, but the seal looks at him with these pleading eyes, and Letty just breaks down. He can't bring himself to harm it. Then the seal transforms into Diarrhea, and we learn this was all a test to see if Letty could survive in the North Pole and whether the harsh conditions would awaken his dragon instincts. But it's pretty clear that Letty is as sweet as a newborn baby and really isn't suited for this environment. Finally, back in his igloo, Letty's egg hatches, and this small bird-like creature emerges, calling him Dad.